Back in June, my husband and I traveled to France for 2 weeks. While we were there, we attended all 3 of the World Cup qualifying matches for the women's soccer team. They were held in Reims was the first one, Paris, and then Le Havre. Ladies, fellows, Toastmasters, and guests, tonight I want to share with you some incredible information that I learned about making champagne while we were in Reims for that first match. Champagne is a part of so many of our special occasions, and tonight I want you to see just how special champagne is. First, I'll let you know a little bit about Reims. It's located in the northeastern part of France in the Champagne region. It's about an hour train ride from Paris to Reims. Reims is considered the capital of the Champagne region, and since the 1600s, champagne has been made there. For almost 1,000 years, French kings were crowned at the Notre Dame Cathedral in Reims. Many of the champagne houses have their headquarters in Reims. They offer tours of their underground caves, and then they offer tastings. Those underground caves were formed by Gallo-Roman slaves who mined chalk, which is a form of limestone, to build the Roman city, which is now Reims. Those caves that were formed went down 60 to 130 feet under the ground. The cool temperature down there, 55 degrees, is just perfect for aging champagne. While we were in Reims, we toured 3 champagne houses. They were Mumm, Taittinger, and Veuve Clicquot. All of the champagne houses start their tours in the same way. You descend down 2 long flights of stairs into the underground. The first thing you notice is how vast the caves are. They're huge. They go off in many directions, and as your guide is telling you about the history of the champagne house and how they make their champagne, what you're noticing are bottles and bottles of champagne everywhere. One tunnel had 99,000 bottles of champagne stacked high as far as the eye could see. One champagne house can have 1 million bottles in their underground caves at any one time. It was extraordinary. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about how they make the champagne. 3 grapes are used to make champagne: Chardonnay, Meunier, and Pinot Noir. To be called champagne, you must follow the French strict rules of the Champagne region. Otherwise, it's called sparkling wine, and that is Cava in Spain and Prosecco in Italy. Here in the United States, we call everything champagne, but that's unofficial. What makes champagne champagne? The bubbles. How do they do that? Champagne is made in big vats like any other wine, and then it gets put into the bottle. Then it goes into a second fermentation. They add a little bit of yeast and sugar and cap the bottle. The yeast eats the sugar, creates alcohol and carbon dioxide, which gives you the effervescent bubbles. The yeast takes 2 to 3 months to die off. That leaves behind sediment floating in the bottle, and that sediment is called lees. To get the sediment out of the bottle, it's going to go through a riddling process. The bottle is placed in a rack at an angle downward. Now they have riddlers who, using both hands, will turn the bottles. 20 to 30,000 of them a day, an eighth of a turn. It takes 6 to 7 weeks to turn and tilt that bottle so all of that light sediment can settle in the neck of the bottle. Machines now do that process in a week, and machines are replacing the riddlers. Once that sediment is in the bottle, now they have to get it out of the bottle. That's called disgorgement. They freeze the neck of the bottle in an ice salt bath. They take the cap off, the pressure pops off this plug of wine and sediment, out it goes. Now you have a clear bottle of champagne, but some of it's missing. Now, a dosage, a mixture of wine, maybe some brandy or some sugars added to top the bottle off. The cork goes on, and the wire secures the cork on place. Now that bottle is ready to lie horizontally in that cool, dark cave for 3, 5, or 10 or more years for a vintage champagne. Once all that aging is done, the bottles are washed and labeled by a machine. Now we have a bottle. Did you know that it takes 7 twists of the wire to take it off the cork? There's a cap inside the wire that you can pop out and then save as a souvenir. Once you get to the bottle, did you know that vintage year means that 100% of the grapes that made that champagne came from the same great, fantastic growing year? That doesn't happen very often. Different vineyards in different locations are going to have good years at different times. Brut is the driest or less sweet of them all, and the most popular. Now, we've opened the bottle and it's time to pour. We pour the champagne into the glass. The bubbles rise immediately. We might describe those bubbles as light and tiny. Maybe they're fast and furious. Maybe they're slow and shy. Our women's soccer team won their match against Thailand 13-0. My husband and I, we celebrated with a bottle of champagne. In France, they say, "À votre santé," to your health, or among friends, simply chin chin, cheers. Tonight you've heard a lot about ROMs, underground caves, and the making of champagne. It's now our turn to say, cheers to champagne.
Take a minute and give Laura some feedback on her sparkling presentation. Okay, a couple more tips about con artists. One is called the affinity trick. And that's basically, for example, the